What is up, guys? It's the Football Take Slayer back here again to slay another terrible take coming from the club. In this video, they're talking about Liverpool, they're talking about Newcastle, and they're talking about Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike. So in this first clip, if you can listen in, they're discussing if Liverpool get Isak, is it over for the Prem? Take a listen.
An ultimatum made by Liverpool in that if Newcastle don't sell him Isak, their alternative backup is Ekitike, who Newcastle also won. Like, my gut feeling has always been Isak don't leave Newcastle for another English club. But if Isak starts to rock the boat a little bit, that move could easily happen this summer. Do you see it happening though?
I could see a world it happens, because you're right about the Premier League thing. In a normal world, then he should be going to Real Madrid or Barcelona, but the money isn't there for those Spanish sides.
Okay, so as you can see from that clip, Buvey now says that if Liverpool get Alexander Isak, if their transfer window ends at Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak, Kirkes and Frimpong, that they will now 100% emphatically win the Premier League. It is over for everybody. So what I don't understand is how this conversation and this narrative being discussed has just instantly turned into now the Prem is over if Liverpool just sign a striker. And I actually completely disagree with the take. I think that if they were to sign Isak, it would exponentially boost their chances of winning the Champions League, because the Champions League relies more on transitional play and who's got the more elite talent that can make something out of nothing, more who's got more individual one-on-one talent, who can cut in on the preferred foot and make something out of nothing. Think of like PSG this year. They had Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Barcola, and Desiree Doué, which are such elite individual talents in transition. Even when they are being outplayed by Arsenal in the Champions League semifinals, they still won. Because typically in the Champions League, individual talent will win you. It'll just win you it. Like, think about when Man City went up against Real Madrid and Rodrigo scored those last two goals. It's just individual talent. They weren't the better team that year. Manchester City was significantly better, but they had better individual talent, and that's what happens in the Champions League. Champions League is 2 games, and if you have the better individual talent, you just have a better chance of winning those 2 games. It doesn't mean that you were necessarily the better team. I mean, again, just think of Arsenal versus PSG this year. Think of Manchester City versus Real Madrid about 2 seasons ago. They weren't the better team, but they definitely had the better individual talent. When you think of PSG's front 3, you think of that individual talent. You aren't surprised that they're capitalizing on the chances they're getting, while Arsenal's front 3 a little bit more wasteful because they have Mikel Merino in there and Martinelli, who just hasn't been playing amazing. Of course they're going to lose, not because they aren't more defensively sound of a team, not that they're not a better overall team, but individual talent wins you the Champions League. But that's why I think Alexander Isak going to Liverpool actually raises the chances for the Champions League significantly. But I don't think it really changes their chances too much for the Prem. And because that's not the case with the Prem. This isn't a 2-game knockout. This is a 38-game season where your individual talent can save you in some games, but it cannot save you in all games. Liverpool has other parts of their squad that they need to strengthen before they spend 125. I've even seen some reports of 140 million on Alexander Isak. And I genuinely believe if they were to spend that, they might not have much to spend on the rest of the squad, if anything to spend on the rest of the squad, especially factoring in the Florian Wirtz purchase. When you look at Liverpool's squad, they are so paper thin in the midfield, specifically the 6th position. I know Gravenberch had a really great season last year, and he played really, really well. And he really made it a position of his own. He is now seen as a 6, which he wasn't seen as a 6 when he was purchased, but he could really do a job there, and he's really an elite 6 now, it seems. But one injury to Gravenberch, and now you're relying on the likes of McAllister to be your 6, which he could do a job, but you wouldn't be getting the best out of him. You don't want him playing the 6. So that is something where they need to strengthen their midfield. You don't want a situation with your 6. We've already seen that with Manchester City. And then they also need another center back outside of Van Dijk and Konate, which Konate, there's links that he's trying to leave to Real Madrid. If he doesn't leave this season, he's going to leave next. So you can't even reliably believe in Konate and try and make him better and better and think of he's going to be the center back pairing for the next 3 years with Van Dijk, because he might be gone this season or he might be gone next season. So in the reality, you need a backup because Konsa just didn't play well last year and the manager didn't love him. I still remember him being hooked off at halftime in the first game of the season. The manager didn't love Konsa as much as most people expected him to love Konsa this season. And the reality is you might need an extra center back to come in because Konate might be gone in a year's time or less. So I think this is really an issue. That they need to focus on, because if Konate or Van Dijk get hurt, which is likely due to the age and the amount of games, you are now really struggling. And I know the thought process could be, well, we'll just outscore all the teams we come across. Okay, how did that work for Manchester City? They signed Doku, Savinho, Marmoush, etc., etc. They signed so many players in attacking positions these last 2 seasons, and it didn't save them. It didn't save them from the horrible defensive issues that they have from injuries to the likes of Rodri and many other center backs. I genuinely believe that a 6 and a center back needs to come in. And then with the money left over, you can go for someone if there's a significant amount of money left over, like Edekike. If you really have that much left over, I'd be surprised if you have 80, 90 million left over. But I really think you can just sign someone like Ollie Watkins to fill in the hole for 2 or 3 seasons, and that would more than suffice. Liverpool showed that they can win the league without an elite striker this year. They don't need a push for one right at this moment if it means sacrificing depth in the rest of the squad. The team sounds unbelievable on paper with Isak, but when reality happens and it's Isak, Salah, and Diaz front 3, but then behind is Bachete and Joe Gomez, you're going to have a hard time winning games, and you're really going to realize that winning games, even when your attack is elite, but the rest of your squad is so paper thin, it's going to be hard to win games. And now I want to transition over just to this next clip. It's really a discussion of like, should Isak be staying at Newcastle? Shouldn't he be going to the places of like Real Madrid and Barcelona? It's like, shouldn't he be going to those teams? And then if he were to go, well, then Newcastle's backup option is Edekike if they don't sell Isak. Just listen to this clip.
The summer.
Scary.
If Liverpool get Isak, is it over for the rest of the Premier League?
If as long as he stays fit and there's no crazy bit of unluck with his injury record, and he has got a few niggles and stuff like that, but if they're unlucky, that's the only issue for me. I think Isak takes them to even the Premier League and the Champions League.
Okay, so from listening to that clip, man, it really just got me thinking. I think, again, this is an example of outdated thought process when it comes to fans of the Premier League who are fans of the bigger sides like Liverpool, Arsenal, United, Man City, etc., etc. 2 of the last 3 seasons, Newcastle have finished in a Champions League position and have been playing Champions League football. These guys are speaking about them like they are Southampton and they just got relegated, and they have to give up their best player to better their finances and start a rebuild to push for a run in the championship. This is a club with huge amounts of money and now huge amounts of quality. They are no longer in the realm of being bullied by the bigger sides in the Prem, because now they have one of the richest, if not the richest owners in all of the Prem, and they have Champions League money coming in. They can keep Isak, and they should, because if you sell him, the new striker you bring in is not going to have the same impact that Isak has right at this moment. And this upcoming season is so important because this is when you could start building momentum and consistency. You can start consistently finishing top 4 and getting Champions League money year in and year out, and that is what separates these squads from the teams that aren't qualifying. If they're able to qualify for the Champions League again, they are now in the Champions League for 3 out of the 4 seasons. That is consistency, and that is a consistent 100 mil every year. And it's hard for other teams in the Prem to keep up when they aren't getting that money. If you sell Isak, then you are instantly ruining your chances, and you actually higher your chances of large regression in the table. I think people aren't realizing the position Newcastle are in currently. Although I don't love their manager for a Premier League title push, I just don't think Eddie Howe is that level of coach and that level of just tactical ability to push for that. I mean, I just don't see him on the same likes of like tactical ability of a Pep Guardiola, of a Mikel Arteta, even of a Slot, even sometimes of a Enzo, of a Maresca. But Newcastle truly have a squad that should be competing and pushing for top 3 or even 2 if injuries go their way. They kept Bruno and Tonali in the midfield. They have Isak, Gordon, and now Alenga up top. They have Lewis Hall, which was, before the injury, was in the running for team of the season. You have Livramento and Trippier as a backup. I'd say you need to strengthen your center back position, but out and out, their starting 11 in terms of skill and physicality, Joe Ellington in the terms of physicality as well, can compete with anyone in the Prem. But the issue with their squad right now is it is a little bit thin. And that is kind of what I was saying earlier with the Alexander Isak purchase from Liverpool. Again, you'll have this elite talent and this elite 11, which I think Newcastle do, and I think if Liverpool buy Alexander Isak, they will have as well. But all it takes is for Newcastle, Bruno Guimaraes getting hurt or Tonali getting hurt in midfield, and now you're really, really struggling. You're really, really struggling to just have that same solidarity in the midfield that you have had for so long. But I really do think these fans of these bigger sides are still talking about Newcastle like it's 10 years ago and they just got relegated. But they aren't understanding the ownership, the players that are there, the run they've been on the last 3 years. They no longer are a side that Liverpool can bully and throw 100 million in their face, and they need to take it to survive. They now have not only the Champions League money, but the ownership money to keep their best player and do what they want. Thank you.